Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create a life you love or love the life you create. Now, here's your host, Dr. April, and co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good today. Yes. And I'm so excited because today is one of the topics that, I love to talk about.
All things love and intimacy, yes.
And I know it's one of your favorite topics to talk about too.
It absolutely is. Anytime that we can talk it, speak it, get the conversation started, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, because I think especially as we're in the busy season of fall, yes, intimacy with kids and soccer practice and Halloween and all this other stuff.
Holidays.
Intimacy between your partners, yeah. It's just sometimes just not happening as much as it should be.
And honestly, the weather and the sunset change is a huge factor in that, because moods kind of get mundane when it starts to get dark earlier. Bodies are tired, so we given so much effort to trying to keep ourselves up that we don't have time to pour into our partner to keep them up. So yeah, this is a great time to keep the conversation of intimacy alive and open.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. And I'm luckily that I'm in Florida. We have a lot of sun.
Well, send us your son. We know.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And time changes right after this Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah. And even with the time change, it's just now you just wake up and it's dark. And it's like, do I want the morning cup of coffee or do I just want to get some extra sleep?
Right. Yeah. And when you have intimacy, not only with your partner, but with yourself, it brightens up your own mood. You know what I mean?
It absolutely does. And I'm fortunate to be able to, I take the kids to school in the morning so I can have that intimate time with them too. So that's another fuel source for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is wonderful and amazing in that aspect. Yes. Yeah. I know here in Southwest Florida, we do have Halloween coming like everybody else, but we're also struggling and trying to rebuild our lives here.
Yeah.
And getting in some type of routine because of the devastation that's here. And so one of the things that I do want to highlight again is the American Red Cross. They do such a great job of not only after disasters like here in Southwest Florida of the hurricane, but they do such a great jobs in communities and providing food, shelter, health things, just a variety of things. So if you're looking for a charity of the month, American Red Cross, and I really do appreciate all the things that they've been doing to help out Southwest Florida.
They are definitely amazing. And just a quick shout out to QB Kendalls, who said hey to everybody, and definitely get up and get that early morning workout on. But just thinking about, what's going on in Southwest Florida, especially with the children, as we spoke of. So being able to, if you can, if there are people listening, if you can, to give them some kind of normalcy and spending that extra TLC, even if it's 5 houses, do the traditional trick-or-treating if you can, muster up something just to, help the children, because they're traumatized and less understanding of what's going on than we, but we show it more than them, if that makes sense. So
right.
and even reaching out to the Red Cross and see if they have any special trunk or treating or something, so that might be a good thing to check into.
Right. And definitely, and I was just thinking, my little one's grown up, but when you do trick or treating, that's like the whole family.
Yes.
Yes. And it's like creative play in some aspect, because you can imagine everything that you're, dressing up as and stuff, which is, like you said, it's an intimate moment for the whole family, which is really, really important.
Oh, yeah. And I bet you we're going to talk about some of that with our guests.
Yes, definitely. We're going to talk about intimacy, and they actually have a system called the 6 Pillars, which is so exciting. Yes. And I've had Tony and Alisa on my show. They're one of the they have one of the top podcasts called One Extraordinary Marriage Show. And when we take a break and come back, we're going to hear all about them and what they do. We'll be back in a moment.
Jamaica, Paradise Island in the Caribbean. Discover quiet waterfront treasures just mere steps away from paradise. Enjoy true Jamaican specialties, live reggae music, hotter than Hades, spiced jerk pork, and chicken soles from beachside vendors. Join Vacation Council in Jamaica on February 12th through 15th. Surprise your Valentine with a sun-kissed, relaxing romantic getaway to Portland, Jamaica. What are you waiting for?
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy Show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Tony and Alisa?
Well, I don't know. I've just watched the commercial for that trip to Jamaica, and I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah, Alisa and I may need to jump on out there with you, Dr. April.
I was really good, but now I'm looking at Jamaica going, ah.
We live in San Diego. It's beautiful, just like you have, Dr. April. But seeing that, we're like, wow, we could do a couples getaway. Like, let's go do it.
Yeah, definitely. You're welcome anytime. Yes. Well, welcome back to the show, guys.
Oh, thank you for having us. We're so glad to be back.
Yeah, thank you. And great to meet you, Coach Gay. Great to have you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yes. So I'm going to introduce you guys to the audience who don't know about you guys. So tell us a little bit just about how you two met and what started all of this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we met in 1994 on the campus of University of Colorado at Boulder. Alisa was there as an intern for the summer. Mm-hmm. I was a hasher, which was basically I cleaned up, and a cook, a morning cook, breakfast cook at my fraternity house, which her program that she was a part of rented out for the summer. Mm-hmm. And the directors of the program, this was my second year doing it. That year, the second year, the directors came up to all of us who were there working. It's free room and board. And you're 21, it's a great deal. But they just said, hey, you know what? Last year you really didn't mingle, or just not. You didn't even. It's not that you didn't mingle, but you just didn't get engage with the students. This year we'd like for you to engage with the students. Well, I took that to heart. I took it literally, and I met this beautiful woman. I think a couple of days after she showed up.
Yeah. And, engage he did. And here we are 28 years later, married for 26, parents of, 2 teenagers, and, building and impacting marriages together. So it's been far cry from that summer of 1994.
Yes, and you got her right when she came on campus.
I was pretty much snatched up.
Yeah. It was a summer, you know what? It was the summer of O.J. Simpson, the
white Bronco.
The white Bronco.
Yes.
And then we had World Cup soccer. So Alisa and I, instead of actually doing what we should have been doing, we would hang out in front of the TV, talk, grow, get to know each other, and watch those 2 events that unfolded that summer of 94.
That's huge. And that piece of your story is so important to highlight. That one little section is major.
Yeah. Well, and we were long distance after that summer. We were long distance for my senior year of college. And so we really had to focus on the emotional intimacy. a lot of your listeners got to go back and think what was going on in 1994. We did not have cell phones. Phones were still mostly attached to a cord in a wall.
Didn't have text messaging.
FaceTime was not even a thing yet. And so like we were old school. It was like letters and long distance phone calls with the associated bills.
And then we also had .edu. So every once in a while we'd get into our computer labs at our universities, and we would sit there at like midnight typing back and forth to each other because that's the time we could be there without anybody else bothering us.
Yeah. So we really had to work on the communication because that was all we had when we were long distance that first year.
Yeah.
With the AOL connection. Ding, ding, ding.
Everybody of a certain age knows the AOL connection sound, and it brings back the flashbacks of just waiting, waiting, the spinning dial, just waiting.
Like, I hope it connects.
So good.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm waiting to know about you guys is, what do you guys define intimacy as?
This is such a good question, because I think, for so many people that are listening to your show, that listen to our show, the initial response when a lot of people get asked what's intimacy is sex, right? Those are the two things that are equated. And what I loved about even just the opening segment that the two of you did is you talked about that intimacy that you can have with your children, and what that looks like when you spend time and you have these conversations, and that becomes part of the fabric of your life. And when we wrote the book, The 6 Pillars of Intimacy, we really wanted to expand that definition. Because like I tell my coaching clients, look, you can't be having sex 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you want an intimate marriage, you got to be able to, break off just that one mindset. So we define intimacy as connection and closeness with, as we define it in marriage, with your spouse, and being able to look at that in 6 key areas. And those are the 6 pillars of intimacy.
Yeah. All right. So what is the first area?
So the first pillar is your emotional intimacy. And Alisa already alluded to it, that closeness and connection between your verbal, nonverbal communication. It's the core, it's the workhorse. As you both know, if we can have that verbal, nonverbal communication, it heightens that intimacy, that closeness and connection we have with one another, but it also can decrease it, right? The folded arms, the look away, the back turn, that can also detract us from really getting close to our spouse. And so emotional intimacy is that workhorse that we have to be engaging in. And I want to just share that Alisa and I have been doing our work for 12 years now with One Extraordinary Marriage. And what we have learned in this area, and we've heard so many people say, well, I was brought up where my dad or my mom didn't like share their emotions, or I saw this happen, or this happened in my marriage. And one thing that we've learned over time is that this is a skill. Like your emotional intimacy, it's a skill. If you work with somebody, they'll help you pull that out of you. There are techniques and skills that you can learn and grow. So it's an area I really believe that for many of us, we're not confident in. And so we just go, well, that's who I am, and that's the way I'm always going to be in this relationship. And yet you can grow into it, and you can get skills to be the best in your marriage.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because I work with a lot of couples, and sometimes men have a hard time understanding the importance of emotional intimacy. They get so attracted by the physical aspect, and that's what really gets them excited. And I was like, just like you get excited about boobs, she gets excited about the emotions.
Right. What are the words?
What are the words? They're like, how can I do that? How can I do that? Yeah. And it's being in touch with your own feelings and being able to express it.
Well, and that brings up, such a good point, that one word, Dr. April, feelings. Yes. Right. So many people are not taught, like we teach our kids, oh, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm mad, but we don't go deeper. Right. And I mean, we just shared a story with our audience about a couple married 42 years. And the husband over the last 2 to 4 years has really been on this journey to break out of that mindset of, this is who I am, I'm not one to share my feelings, and has been working with a professional to learn how to do that. And his wife raves about how much their marriage of 42 years is more extraordinary than it's ever been.
That's a blessing.
That's always good to hear.
Yeah. Yes. So what is pillar number 2?
Pillar number 2 is physical intimacy. And we love sharing this because what we found in the work that we do is that physical intimacy and sexual intimacy, which is the 6th pillar, are actually 2 separate things.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of times you can have the hugs, you can have the kisses. And if we're even talking about, going back to talking about children or friends, you can have those non-sexual touches that you do with another person that still foster intimacy. They foster connection and closeness. And what we were finding is that so many people would talk about, well, I want the physical intimacy, but it wasn't always sexual. And so how did we wanted to give folks language. And I think this is a really big part of the work that Tony and I have done over the years is when couples have language to identify what's happening in their marriage, then it becomes this situation where we know what to do, or we can put a plan in place. Mm-hmm. And so the physical intimacy, it's your hugs, it's your kisses, it's hand holding, it's back massages and foot massages and all of that touch that says, hey, I see you, you're important to me, and I want you close.
And it can lead to sexual intimacy, and yet it's very much defined as non-sexual touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know QB Kennels just said the importance of emotional intimacy. And when you add touch, and I was just thinking, as you mentioned with kids, when you have kids, it's showing them in the early stages, both of these things, having them express themselves, I feel, hugging them. Yeah. And so as these little girls and boys grow up and they see it, and they, of course, see their parents do it, then they're able to do it in their own relationships.
Yeah. And you bring it up it with your kids. Ours are older. One of them's already moved out, and he's a big kid. He's 6'2". At his height, he was like 250. He's around like 230 now. He's a big kid. I mean, I'm 5'10". But I remember just on Saturdays, he played football, and on Saturdays, we were a huge college football family, and we'll watch any college football team. Like, we just love watching football. And I remember so many Saturday mornings just sitting on the couch with him, and we would just talk. And I would literally just put my knee on his knee, my hand on his knee, and it was just that sort of that, hey man, I see you, I hear you, what you're saying, because he was usually on the football field Friday nights and sore and tired. But that has grown over the years of us just, when he comes down now, like he comes in and we just give each other a big old hug and a big squeeze. And if we do end up watching some football, we still have that time together. And it allows us to just, hey, father and son, just be close and connected.
Yeah. And that might help him to teach others too.
Yeah. It goes back, Dr. April, to what you were saying, what do our children see modeled in the home? Right. Because they will carry that forward. I'm sure both of you see in the work that you do with couples that a lot of times they're like, I never saw my parents do this, right? It was never, I don't know if my parents did or didn't, but when we as adults step into this place of saying, this is the culture we want to create, this is the legacy we want to leave, it changes everything.
Right. Definitely. Okay. Yes. And so what is our next level or pillar of intimacy?
Next pillar is financial intimacy. And this one gets most people to go like, huh? Like, why would you say financial or finance is an intimacy? Again, because intimacy is closeness and connection. And as we all know, if you're in a relationship, money comes into play in some way, shape, or form. So we are going to have to be close and connected around our money in different areas of it, right? From some of us may be dealing with debt. Some of us may just need to get a budget or a cash flow plan. Others may be on the other side of it where it's like, it's coming close to retirement. Do we have wills? Do we have trust set up? Even day to day, how are we spending? Is it on credit cards or is it all cash? And so this is a vital part of any marriage that needs to be discussed. Depending on where you're at and what your goals and dreams are around this area.
I even think about the prenup conversation that you see has so much tension around it, but with, going through that with a different sense of heart, the conversation is just totally different. So financial is definitely such an important pillar of intimacy.
Well, and I think, Coach K, what you bring up there, I have a friend who is a family law attorney, and she and I did a conversation a while back on prenups and postnups, actually. And what you said right there is so key. What is the heart that you go into it with, and how do we use these tools, and prenups and postnups are tools, how do we use these tools to strengthen our relationship and bring us closer together?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking of I know a lot of couples, even like you guys, who work together.
Yeah.
I just had a session, on financial intimacy. Yeah. And it was just how they had a hard time talking about finances in their business. We'd spend all this time on their home life, which got better, but the business, but
there's still tension there, right?
Yes, it's about the finances, and
we've lived it. We've had to work through that.
Yeah.
It's and partly, and this is just as a side note, when you do work with your spouse, all of these intimacies look a little different, because not only are you dealing with it, kind of after 5, what happens in the bedroom, what happens at the dinner table, but for us, we deal with it pretty much 24 hours a day. And so it's navigating each one of these pillars throughout that. Absolutely.
Right. And definitely having, I think, boundaries of separating work from home. Yeah. In that conversation.
Oh, because they can blend very easily.
It's like a finger painting done by a 2-year-old where you have all the separate colors and then it just becomes brown.
That goes down back to our emotional intimacy, to be able to say, hey, are we having a conversation around our relationship, like our marriage? Or are we having a conversation that's going to talk about the business?
Right.
And having some guardrails around that and being able to call one another out, especially for Alisa and I, having the ability to say, hey, we're moving back into this area that we didn't want to go into.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So the fourth pillar
is, that's okay, spiritual intimacy. Yeah. And I love, even just as we were listening to the opening of your show, right, talking about that, and spiritual intimacy, how the two of you express yourself in your faith, your religious practices. So often we're taught at a young age, if we're raised in a home that has a faith base to it, is that this is your personal relationship, right? This is yours. And so stepping into this place, similarly to money and finances, where as the two become one in a marriage, what does it look like to share matters of faith? What does it look like to practice faith together, to be able to have those conversations, to, again, build the closeness and connection, and not just have it be like, well, this is mine and this is yours, and they don't mix, they don't mingle, and we don't talk about it. It just gets awkward, right?
Yeah.
So stepping into that.
Yeah. A lot of couples know the idea about praying together, but they don't actually do it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I always remind them that he's not a God of confusion. He's not going to tell one person one thing, one person the next. Yeah.
And that's one of those areas where a lot of couples maybe didn't see their parents do it, or a lot of individuals didn't. And it's so, it can feel so awkward or vulnerable the first couple of times, but so did, I tell people all this time in my coaching clients, I'm like, so did riding a bike the first time you tried to do it. And when you were 7, you didn't stop figuring it out because you were uncomfortable. You're like, no, I'm going to master this.
Right.
And I say the same thing to couples about praying together or sharing their faith. It's pretend you're riding a bicycle. You're going to have to practice a few times until it feels second nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes couples don't want to mix spiritual intimacy and sex, which...
I even wrote in the book on the chapter on spiritual intimacy, I'm like, in some cases, it can actually bring the two of you closer than even sexual.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, we have prayed in our bedroom. We have prayed for our sex life. We have done these things over our married years together. And I would say, don't be afraid to mix those.
Right.
Literally, the God of the Bible, Genesis 2 talks about the two shall becoming one. All of the husbands in the Bible knew their wives, and that wasn't just like head knowledge. So God's been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. So what's the next pillar?
So the next one is recreational intimacy. And this is all our dates and activities. This is the fun. This is the fun we have together. And how are we getting close and connected? Because I think both of you can attest to, sometimes we can get in these ruts.
Right.
Especially around dates, right? Like we want to do something exciting, and yet we go to the same restaurant. We sit down at the same booth. We order the same meal. We look at our phones, and then we go back home. Like, where was the fun in that? Where was the heightened intimacy in that closeness and connection? And so this one is really about, how are we going to step out How are we going to do something different? How are we going to encourage one another to do an activity together, or even do a different date? And when we say that too, we say date. It's not about date night only. It could be date breakfast. It could be date lunch. It could be date coffee. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It's about the two of you having this connection to go, hey, we're going to go try something different. We're going to go seek a new area of our city together, or our town, or we're going to go to that new restaurant. We're going to go to that new park and just go for a long walk around the lake and sit down at the bench. But this is all about fun.
Just, it takes you back to when you were first dating.
Yeah.
Right. You were trying all different kinds of things. You would be so excited to want to take him or want to take her and go do something new. That curiosity, that sense of adventure doesn't need to stop just because you've been married 5, 10, 15, 20 years. In fact, I actually think it's more critical at that juncture than it was when the two of you were getting to know each other, because it brings back the excitement and the anticipation in the relationship.
Yeah. A fun one I like to share with everybody. Lisa and I have done this many a times. It's called progressive dinners. And go somewhere where it's fun. You can walk. You can do drive-through progressive dinners as well. We have many in the one family who've done this. But you go somewhere and you get an appetizer. Sit down, have an appetizer. Maybe go through a drive-through. Go grab a fun appetizer. Enjoy that time together. The next one, go get your entree. Share an entree together. Go somewhere, sit down. Maybe if you're somewhere where it's walkable, you just get some time between that appetizer time and the entree time.
Oh, so you're going to different places.
Yeah, you're going to different places.
Okay.
You're not doing the entire meal in one place. So it's just like, like you will tell the waitress, hey, we're just here for an appetizer.
Yeah.
And what it does is different foods, different locations. And
different atmospheres.
You've got that walk time in between of just holding hands. So you get the physical intimacy, and you're just, all of that just kind of breaks up the night. So it doesn't feel like, oh yeah, we've done this before.
Yeah, I like that.
So after your entree, go get a dessert. And that could be anywhere from just going, hey, getting a fancy coffee somewhere, or maybe there's some amazing place that sells the best cookies in your town. Go grab. So it extends it. There's some excitement. There's something new. And so you're not just sitting in one restaurant doing everything right there and then just getting up and leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fabulous. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So what's use that in the date night RVA, by the way? I think.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Definitely have to steal that one.
Please do. Please do.
Absolutely.
And, Tony mentions the drive-through, and that's what a lot of people were doing a lot of people in our audience were doing that during COVID when they couldn't go anywhere. They just to get different scenery, they would go get, drink here and go get French fries here and go get a burger here, or, drive all around there, because it was something to do. And we can still do that today. And it's looking at how do we keep bringing the adventure into our marriages.
Yeah.
Right. And Dr. April, to answer your question, the sixth pillar is sexual intimacy. It's the one that a lot of people expect us to start with, but we actually very intentionally put it at the end, because when all of the other 5 pillars are strong and when you're intentional about them, the sexual intimacy really does, I like to say it skyrockets, or it's like fireworks, because you have so much connection in all these different areas. And, one of the things about the sexual intimacy pillar is that it's not just sexual intercourse. Right. We want to get couples away from just thinking there's one way to be sexually intimate, because we know, our audience, literally we go from newlyweds to those that have been married 40, 50 years. We get into health issues, we get into body changing and things like that. Yep. And just because you might not be able to have sexual intercourse doesn't mean the two of you can't engage in foreplay, or I even tell initiating romance. But I even tell some of my clients, I'm like, what would it look like if you had a sexual buffet? Right. Have the conversations around what all is included in that. And then it actually minimizes rejection in the marriage, because you can say, hey, somebody might start the conversation saying, hey, do you want to have sex tonight? And they're like, I'm not feeling good. I'm not up for sex, or, I'm tired. I'm not up for sex, but I'm open to doing something else on the buffet.
Right.
We've got all of these options, and it allows couples to minimize rejection, foster the sexual intimacy, and really look at this pillar as an opportunity to not play tug of war, but to be unified and united.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes. Yeah. It's really just about playing. Yeah. Yeah. And taking all the other intimacies, like you said, communicating about it and telling your emotional needs. And you put all that together, it's amazing. And when the higher powers in there. It's just, that's when it fireworks.
Exactly. And when you're working on each of them, we know within marriage, hey, some may have cracks at certain points in time, but you still have strength in others. So, where's our strength? Which pillar is strong? How do we continue to take what's strong there and move it on over to another pillar as well? And so we understand it's flexible. Marriages are flexible. Elise and I have been married 26 years. We've had 2 kids. We've had life happen to us. We didn't just end up here one day and just going great. Like we remember looking down at divorce for the second time 11 years in. And yet when we look at our pillars and go, okay, which ones have cracks? How do we strengthen them? Which ones are strong? And how we continue to just press into those and build the extraordinary marriage we desire. It's like, all right, we can do this. We got this.
Awesome.
So can I ask you a question about the place where you guys kind of had that strife? Because I would love to hear and they don't know I'm asking this. It's candid.
Okay, go for it.
When you were going through that moment, did either of you say, I want us to go back to what we used to be? And if not, what did you say during that time?
So when we were, just to give a little context, the kids were 2 and 5. They're now about to be 17 and 20. So 15 years ago, we were professional roommates. And by that, I mean, we could do the business of life and parenting really well, but there was no connection here. And Tony is the visionary. He's the big idea guy. And so he didn't say, I want to go back. He said, this is what I want to try. And he actually, at that point in time, proposed a 60-day sex challenge. And I immediately said no, because kids were 2 and 5. We weren't having sex. And I didn't think that was going to be the answer, if I can be just completely honest. And I've shared this story many times, but I literally had a come to Jesus moment the next day in our garage with a basket full of laundry. And the thought that went through my head was, if you're not willing to try to put your marriage first for 60 days, like the guy is not asking for, the next 10 years. He's asking for 60. If you aren't willing to see what happens by making your marriage a priority, then your marriage is over. And I wasn't ready to accept that.
I appreciate that answer, because I just want people to hear that you don't want to go back, because going back is where you ended up here. So I appreciate that candid. It was a question that just came out, but I'd love to hear that about people who were in spots, because hear so many people say, I just want us to go back to where we were. And it's like, do you really? Do you really want to go back?
No. And that's something that's really cool that you bring that up, Kay, because I think where we see marriage and how we just speak to the one family is like, where are you now? And when Elise and I first got married, I was 23. She was 22. Like, we didn't know anything about anything, really. And so we're constantly growing. We're constantly learning. And so we have to be engaging with one another. It's why we have the 6 pillars of intimacy, because we have to continuously look at those and go, where are we now? Right. Because the 49-year-old Tony, let's just talk about sexual intimacy. The 49-year-old Tony is vastly different than the 23-year-old Tony. And I don't want to go back to that Tony, because I believe we're having the best sex life than we've ever had in our marriage right now, because we've had that closeness and connection over these years to learn one another.
And you can't really go back, because that's irrational, because like you said, you're older.
Right. I mean, I think it's important, and I will say this about looking backwards. It's important to capture the things that were good. Right. If you were really intentional about dating, or you were really intentional about making time with one another, or you were intentional about your conversations, go back, pick up those things and bring them forward, but don't go back and get stuck in all the muck.
Exactly.
Right? Just bring the skills forward that you stopped doing, but all the rest of it, leave in the past and let it go.
Yeah, that's good.
Definitely. Yes. So our audience out there listening, and they want to get to know you guys, where could they find information about you two?
Yeah, I think the best place to go, if you want to learn more about where you're strong, what is your strongest pillar, you can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/free quiz. And that will take you through a quiz, and you can go, okay, what is my strongest pillar? And then begin to go, oh, okay. For everything else, you can just go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com. You can learn more about us, the podcast, the book, everything else. But we'd love for you to get that quiz and take it to go, all right, what is our strongest pillar? Or what's my strongest pillar? And your spouse can take it, and you can see what their strongest pillar is, and then you can grow together from there.
And if I could just add one thing, the reason we ask you to do this and to look at what your strongest pillar is, and I'm sure the two of you see this as well, if we operate from a place of strength, we have confidence. Yes. And we can actually tackle the things that are harder than going from this place of weakness and feeling defeated. Like, where am I weak? So that's why you'll find out, all of the listeners, as they take the quiz, they'll find out where they're strongest. And then there's that confidence to go tackle the other pillars and to raise them up to that same level.
Yes. Well, awesome. I love having you guys on.
So much fun.
Thank you, Dr. April. Coach Kate, what a pleasure to meet you as well.
Every year you guys look beautiful and younger, and
I received that. Thank you.
It's the sunshine in San Diego. It's just like you in South Florida.
Sunshine is good.
All right, then. You guys take care. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a moment.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sex should not be the elephant in the room. The fourth ebook of the Improving Intimacy book series, From Bringing Intimacy Back, It's All About Sex, helps you navigate every which way you can tend to your sex life. Pulling out all the stops, dive into the sensual read about sex toys, silky linens, and date nights. Improving Intimacy, It's All About Sex is available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and paperback. Search Dr. April Brown on Amazon to view all her books on improving intimacy for yourself, spouse, and more.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. They're always so inspiring.
I love it. I'm glad that I was here for that one. It's just a breath of fresh air to hear truth and transparency in a marriage that many people don't get to hear and understand that there are challenges, but there's growth.
Yes, definitely. And there are a couple that I've had on for a few years now, but they're honest about their relationship and the struggles. And so great. So I know we have some upcoming shows coming up.
We do. We have some great shows. So on November the 3rd, we have Carrie Shell with The Impact of Alcohol on Intimacy. On November the 10th, we have Michael Magrucci with Reconnecting to Our Humanity. Then on the 17th of November, we have Rochelle McLeod with Hunting for Symptoms That Leads to Your Next Level Up. And then just that quickly, it's Thanksgiving. So we're all going to be somewhere getting food and having fun and creating new intimate moments with our families.
Yes. And giving gratitude, Yes. For a lot of people out there, between the years of COVID, all the disasters in the world and everything else, we got to be thankful, for what we have and the peace we do have here in America compared to other places. So yes, so excited about Thanksgiving, but I know we have 3 more shows coming up before then. So if you're out there and you like our show, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and definitely YouTube, and check us out and give us a rating. Or if you want to contact us, go to Bringing Intimacy Back and let us know. All right. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. See you next week, Coach, and thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7th book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.